Scandalous, the penalty decisions, Gary. First of all, the handball. Did you think it was?
The one near the end?
Yeah.
I thought it would have been scandalous if it was given.
Explain to Mikel Arteta why this is not a penalty.
If Mikel Arteta had lost a game of football giving away a penalty like this, he would be absolutely fuming. You know, at the amount of times that I think I used to slide in and try and block crosses, and your arm has to be somewhere. You cannot have your arms by your side when you slide in to block a shot. You know, his arm's not up in the air. His arm's just in a position like that. I mean, that is not a penalty. Never in a million years is that a penalty. You go in like that to block a cross, your foot's there, your arm's there. It could hit you there, it could hit you there. It's never a penalty in a million years. That is not a penalty. Mikel Arteta would not want that given against Zinchenko or against Ben White or against Tomiyasu. He'd be fuming, so that's not a penalty.
What about the Dan Burn tug on Gabriel?
That one he's got a right to be annoyed with. What I think the problem is here is that under Howard Webb, the VAR officials have been told, light touch, don't get involved unless you really have to. They should have got involved here. You know,
when there's enough there.
Yeah, when you're pulling the shirt off someone's shoulder and you think about it, the actual the sponsorship logo on the front of the shirt is over the shoulder of the player. You've pulled the shirt off the back nearly there. So I said at the time, they're very lucky there, Newcastle. Very lucky.
So you can understand his frustration overall.
On the second one, yeah, the handball one at the end, you know, I think Eddie Howe was right to respond to that on the touchline because that was never a penalty. And I think that, to be fair, Arsenal were on the edge there. But, you know, it's fine. They wanted to win the game. The first one, I think they can be aggrieved.
Do you think they had enough to win the game? They did enough to win the game?
Not really. No. Pope made one great save in the second half from Nketiah, and that was a great save. Anything that goes through a defender's legs at an angle, it's a good save. Bar that, didn't really pepper the goal, didn't have a lot of shots. I thought they run out of ideas, if I'm being honest. I thought they made the wrong decisions too many times, wasn't patient enough. They got to get used to that. They've earned the right now for teams to come here. I mean, and this is a top 3 team. You wait till they go and play against the bottom 6 teams. Wow, they won't even come out from 40 yards out, you know, and they'll look for a set piece. But that's what you've got to do if you want to be a successful team. You know, I go to Stamford Bridge. You kick off at Stamford Bridge, teams just run back and sit in front of their goal. That's why Lukaku don't play for Chelsea anymore. There's no space behind, you know, and this is the problem. And Arsenal have earned that right. And that's why these successful teams like your Liverpools and your Man Cities, they find ways to break people down. But we could have been sitting here a lot different and waxing lyric where we'd have gone, Arsenal jumped out the traps. They could have scored after 2 or 3 minutes again. Then they would have run away with this game. They would have won 3 or 4. But they didn't get that early goal and they sort of run out of ideas, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it was stalemate at the end because Arsenal... The interesting thing was Vieira, I think he was £34 million. Mikel Arteta felt that if he brought him on, he would obviously have weakened his team to try and win that game tonight. So he hasn't got faith in his bench to improve the team that was out there. They do rely upon the perfect pass and the thread. They haven't got full-backs that deliver really good crosses. They haven't got a midfield player that switches play or puts a De Bruyne-style crosses. So they're always reliant upon those short bits of play around the box, which Newcastle, to be fair, defended so well and so resiliently and so compactly, made it really difficult for them. And they didn't have another plan off the bench.
But what they've got has been working pretty well so
look,
far.
To be fair, tonight, I think that plan tonight would have worked against probably maybe 10, 15 other teams in the league. They didn't play badly tonight, Arsenal. Newcastle just did really well in their defence. They were compact. They kept clean sheet after clean sheet. And Arsenal just ran out of ideas in this game. But I do think Mikel Arteta should have something more to call upon on the bench when you're trying to change the flow of a game at the end. And he will need to go into the transfer market if Arsenal... Because, look, Arsenal are in the position whereby they can win the league here. So when are they going to be in that position again? You don't know when you're going to be in that position again. So can the Arsenal board, can the Arsenal owners find those 2 players that can come off the bench, that can maybe even improve the first 11, that would bolster Arsenal's chances of winning that game and turning it from 1 into 3 points? Because, look, there's how many games left have they got now? 21 games still to go. They're going to have a lot more of those, as you've just said, where they're going to be basically up against it. They might be 1-0 down, need 2 goals. That's going to happen as well. So they need something off the bench from Mikel Arteta to be able to go and get. Do
you think that is the kind of conversation they're going to be having right now, especially brought on by the absence of Gabriel Jesus for we're not sure how long? Yeah,
and that's the point I was going to make. When you look at Jesus in this side, what he does when he gets on the ball and he takes people on and he gets into those boxes, into the box and causes a problem, they didn't quite have that today. And Nketiah tried on a few occasions, and as Paul said, had that one shot but they're going to need to do something a little bit different. You talk about the wing-backs crossing the ball. I think you cross the ball, you ain't got no one to cross to when you're, as an Arsenal centre-forward. There's no one to cross to, so they have to try and work it the way they have try to work it today to try and get opportunities.
He's come as close as anyone, though, really, Eddie Nketiah, to scoring tonight, hasn't he?
I thought he was bang unlucky with his effort. You know, considering you're not getting a lot of play, you know, it was really tight, not a lot of space for him. I thought the kid done well. I thought he stuck at it. And the name of the game, when you're not getting a lot, this was brilliant. I thought that was absolutely brilliant play. That was, you know, Xhaka should have done a lot better. But yeah, but his chance to be cold and get the chance was decent. I don't really want him where he was just a minute ago on the halfway line, turning and trying to pick people out. He needs to be in the box. But he did nothing wrong. He did nothing wrong. And if he scores a goal, we'll be going 3-3 and everything's great. You're working on margins, just margins. It's so hard, this Premier League.
It was a good experience tonight, you know, for Saka, Martinelli and Nketiah, because they had defenders up against them, but not just defenders, but they had a midfield that were willing to work back and double up with them as well. And I think they're not going to come up against that too often. But what the players now are conditioned to continue to do the same things. That's what they're told. I think maybe a few years ago you might have said, try something different. That's why I was urging Zinchenko. Zinchenko plays a brilliant position for Arsenal. He blocks counter-attacks, he keeps possession for them, he sustains attacks. But could he have been that extra player forward on that left-hand side that made it maybe a little bit different for, say, Trippier with Martinelli? Could they have done something different within the sort of game, within the structure that they had? Could Saka have maybe gone and played closer to his centre-forward maybe for 5 minutes? Could Martinelli have gone... something different that I think they could have maybe done.
I think maybe even just change side.
Yeah.
Because they were doubling up all the time. The two wingers, because they're doubling up, when they go down the wing, they're always coming back on themselves. So the doubling up man has got to stay there. Now, if you swap sides, he's going to go down the wing. Now, the doubling up man don't come into the equation because you're not cutting back. You're going that way.
Pep does that sometimes with Foden. He brings him onto the left, doesn't he, so he can go down the left-hand side. You're right.
He takes out the doubling
Just do something that changes it.
It is only the third time this season they've dropped points. Arsenal.
Oh, well, that's how good they've been.
Would you agree with Gary's general point that possibly to take that final step, they need something else going forward?
100%. They need at least two players. As you said tonight, they run out of ideas and they've got nobody to come on. They've got a lad who's £34 million. They haven't brought him on. You know, in the end, when push comes to shove, you're better off not losing the game, which they never. You know, if you all of a sudden put another player on and all of a sudden you attack, you know, they would have been. I know Newcastle didn't pick the right pass, but you've got St. Maximus, you've got pace on the counter-attack. You don't want to lose the game. You know, I've seen Arsenal here many a time in a game like this where they've dominated and you come off the pitch scratching your head, you've lost 1-0. Yeah. That's another point.
Eddie Howe changed his front three. Murphy, St. Maximin and Wood, and Mikel Arteta couldn't. He didn't have that luxury.
I'm just thinking, could you have done something like, you know, I just think about Pep, and I know he's learnt a lot off Pep. Do you just take off one of your centre-halves or push one of your centre-halves up and cause a problem? Just do something different, you know, instead of just trying to get the ball into him and get the pieces in and around.
The manager.
Exactly, just get something in and around him. Just do something different, and they didn't do that.
They need to do something, didn't they? They needed to interfere with the stalemate. You know, if it's going nowhere a game and the pressure's on you to win, you have to do something either off the side of the pitch with the manager or on the pitch to interfere with that. Just don't think Arsenal tonight, and I don't think they played badly at all. I think they played quite well in the game. They could have won. They've been brilliant all season. They just didn't interfere with Newcastle, who just got quite stable and structured. You know, they were compact and did really well defensively. They just didn't disrupt them enough.